Far above the rooftops, long after the last lamp in the house has gone soft and golden, there is a single point of brilliance hanging low in the winter dark. It does not glow the way the other stars glow. It burns, white and blue and faintly silver, and every few moments it seems to shiver through a whole quiet rainbow, as though it cannot quite decide which colour it loves the most. You may have seen it many times without ever once knowing its name. It is the brightest star in all the night sky, and tonight it is shining somewhere over your part of the world, steady and patient, while you settle slowly into rest. Its name is Sirius. Picture it for a moment, that one trembling jewel above the bare black trees, hanging just below the shoulder of a hunter drawn long ago in stars. The cold air is perfectly still. Frost is gathering on the grass without a sound, blade by blade in the dark. And that piercing thread of brilliance has crossed an almost unthinkable distance simply to reach your eyes. Here, now, in this room, on this night. It asks nothing in return. It only shines, the way it has shone over sleeping cities and silent fields and the slow turning of the dark sea for far longer than anyone alive can remember. Let yourself grow still and let your mind drift toward it. You do not need to remember any of this. There is no test waiting on the far side of sleep. Nothing to hold, nothing to carry, nothing at all to keep. Let the facts move through you the way starlight moves through the dark, lightly, weightlessly, without effort. Some will settle somewhere deep inside you, and some will simply pass by, and both of those are completely fine. Let your shoulders loosen and drop. Let your jaw unclench. Let the small muscles around your eyes go slack. Let the very back of the mind open the way the evening sky opens slowly just before the first star appears. What stays, stays. What leaves, leaves. You're only here to rest and to be carried, the way an old light is carried across a great dark distance. And there is nothing to do about any of this now, nothing to reach for, nothing to keep, only to sink a little deeper into the warmth where you already lie, while that bright blue star burns on far above the rooftops, exactly as it has through all the long nights before this one. Where every stargazer who ever lived has always begun, you begin too, simply by looking up. When you find Sirius in the night sky, you're looking at the single most luminous star that any human eye can see in the dark, brighter than every other point of light scattered across the heavens. It outshines all its neighbours not because it is the largest star that exists, and not because it is the most powerful, but for two reasons woven together. It is genuinely a bright, hot star full of fierce blue-white fire, and it happens to live very close to us, as the great distances between stars are measured. Of all the countless suns scattered through the heavens, this one brilliant flame is practically next door, leaning in close enough that its light arrives clear and strong, like a single lamp left burning in a window down the lane, a great fire that has chosen, by mere chance of place, to keep you such close company. And yet even a neighbour among the stars lies unimaginably far away. The light that touches your eyes, were you to rise and step outside and find it, did not leave Sirius this evening. It left more than 8 years ago. It set out across the emptiness around the time of some ordinary forgotten morning years and years in your own past, and it has been travelling ever since, crossing a gulf so wide that light itself, the swiftest thing that exists anywhere, needed all those years to make the crossing. So when you gaze up at Sirius, you are not seeing the star as it is right now. You are seeing a memory of it, a message sent long ago only just arriving. You received tonight an old light that set out before you knew you would be here to catch it. That distance has a number, and the number is about 8.5 light years. A light year is simply how far light travels across a single year, and light is swift beyond all human reckoning, fast enough to circle the whole round Earth 7 times over in the time it takes your heart to beat once. Now stretch that unthinkable speed across 8.5 full years of unbroken travel, with no rest and no pause, and you begin to feel the true size of the gulf between you and that white flame in the window of the night. It is a distance the mind cannot really hold, so do not try to hold it. Let it simply be vast, and let yourself be small and warm and perfectly safe here beneath it. The bigness of the sky is nothing to fear. It is only a great dark room, and you are resting in the very heart of it. Up close, were you somehow able to draw near it, Sirius would look nothing like the calm pinprick you know from here. It would be a fierce blue-white sun, noticeably larger than our own, far hotter at its glowing surface, pouring out a flood of light beside which our own daytime sun would seem mellow and dim. It carries roughly twice the mass of the sun, twice the gathered substance, and it shines with something like 25 times the sun's brightness. To stand on a world circling such a star would be to live beneath a brighter, bluer, far more dazzling kind of day. The noon light tinted faintly toward the colour of a clear winter morning, the shadows sharp-edged and cool, the whole sky washed in a hard, clean brilliance. From here, though, all that fire reaches you slowed and cooled and pressed down into a single silver spark, no wider than a grain of frost on the glass, no warmer to the eye than a snowflake caught in a street lamp. You may have noticed how it seems to twinkle more than anything else up there, shivering and flashing through its colours as though it were alive, throwing off little sparks of red, then green, then icy blue, faster than the eye can follow. That shimmer is not the star itself wavering. The star holds perfectly still. What moves is our own air. As that old light slips down through the restless ocean of the atmosphere, through layers of warm and cool, through wind and unseen currents, through the rising heat of the day still leaving the ground, it is bent this way and that, scattered for an instant into its hidden colours, before gathering itself back together. Because Sirius is so bright, and because it so often sits low near the horizon, its light must pass through more of that shifting air than any other star, and so it dances more vividly than the rest. What you are watching is the breath of your own living planet, painted across an ancient beam from far away. A meeting, in the dark, of something distant and something very near, the whole atmosphere of the Earth turned for a moment into a lens. That low and brilliant flicker carries a name that suits it. Sirius is the dog star, and it has worn that title for thousands of years. It marks the heart of a constellation shaped like a great loyal hound, Canis Major, the greater dog, who follows forever at the heel of the hunter Orion as he strides across the winter sky. Night after night, century after century, that faithful star dog trails its master through the dark, never tiring, never straying, never once falling behind. And there, blazing at its breast, burns Sirius, the brightest jewel that any dog, in any sky, has ever worn upon its collar. A guardian's heart, made of pure light, set high above the bare trees and the frozen fields and the smoking chimneys of the sleeping world. The very name seems to glow a little when you say it under your breath. Sirius comes down to us from an old Greek word that means scorching, or glowing, or searing bright. The people who first reached for that name were not thinking of light years, or temperatures, or hidden companions. They were simply standing out in the dark, much as you might be, watching that one searing point outshine everything around it. And they reached, by instinct, for a word that meant brightness itself. Across all the generations that lie between those ancient watchers and you, the name has held fast and never once let go. So when you whisper it into the stillness of your room, you speak the very same wonder they felt, looking up at the very same light. A single word passed down the centuries, mouth to mouth, all the way to you, and that light belongs to a corner of the sky stitched together by some of the most striking stars we know. On clear winter evenings, Sirius forms one shining corner of a wide pattern that sky watchers have long called the Winter Triangle, joined by two other brilliant stars set across the surrounding dark. One a warm, golden point off to one side, the other a cooler white higher up, the three of them slung across the southern sky like the points of a great loose net. Around it and above it spread the bright shoulders and belt of the hunter, the paired lights of the celestial twins, the misty little cluster of the seven sisters gathered close, and the broad, glittering field of stars that the winter brings. Sirius sits among them all like the clasp upon a great jewelled cloak thrown across the shoulders of the night. It does not shine alone, off in some empty quarter of the dark. It presides over a whole gathering of light, the brightest among a court of brilliant companions, holding its place at the heart of the winter sky. There is a deeper secret folded into its brilliance, though, one the ancient watchers could never have guessed. Sirius is not a single star at all. What looks to us like one flawless point of light is, in fact, two stars bound together, circling one another in a slow and graceful waltz through space. There is the dazzling star that we see and love, and there is a small hidden companion turning around it, far too faint for any unaided eye to catch. For the whole of human history, people gazed up at that light and saw only one, and all the while, secretly, there were two of them, dancing together in the dark. The single brightest star you have ever seen is in truth a pair, two lights forever turning around each other, blurred across the long distance into one warm and trembling glow. What that hidden companion truly is, and how it was finally found, and why it so astonished the people who at last glimpsed it, unfolds best slowly, here in the dark, the way the deepest secrets are always best told. The brilliant one, the star our waking eyes adore, is called Sirius A, the great blue-white sun, the senior partner in that long, slow dance, the source of very nearly all the light that crosses the years to find us. When you stand outside in the cold and pick out the dog star low in the dark, this is the flame you are truly meeting, the one that does almost all the shining, while its small companion turns almost invisibly at its side. It pours out that flood of blue-white radiance with the easy generosity of a young and powerful star, and it has done so for a very long while, lighting one winter night after another. The single brightest star in all your sky is the senior partner of a pair, shining for you while its small twin keeps its place beside it. That faint partner is a kind of star unlike anything our own daytime sun will become for billions of years yet, and it was discovered not by being seen, but by being felt. Long before anyone ever laid eyes on it, an astronomer watching with great care noticed that Sirius did not travel through the sky in a perfectly straight line. It wobbled, ever so slightly, swaying back and forth across the years, as though some invisible hand were tugging at it from the dark. There was no visible cause anywhere near it, and so he reasoned, brilliantly, that an unseen companion must be there, circling close, its gravity rocking the bright star to and fro, the way a cradle is rocked. He had found a whole star by its absence, by the faint dent it left in the path of its brighter twin. To perceive a hidden thing only by the shape of the space it leaves behind, that is a rare and beautiful kind of seeing. Years passed before that unseen partner finally stepped out of the dark and into view. When telescopes had at last grown fine enough, a gifted instrument maker testing a new and powerful lens turned it towards Sirius, and caught at last a tiny speck of light hiding inside the great glare of the bright star, exactly where the wobble had long promised it would be. The invisible had become visible. The companion was real, just as the swaying path had foretold for decades before. Picture the held breath in that one small moment, peering through cold, polished glass at a thing the whole of human history had never once seen, and finding it precisely where pure reasoning had said it must be, hidden there in the brightness. To predict an unseen star, then to look, and to find it truly there, is one of the quiet triumphs of all human looking. That little companion soon earned a fond and fitting name. Astronomers came to call it the pup, the small one, trotting along beside the great dog star. So now the picture grows complete and rather sweet. A brilliant celestial hound with a faint, devoted pup forever at its side, the two of them circling one another in the long dark, never parting, never wandering off, turning and turning through the slow years, and we, far below them, see only one warm light where two are truly dancing. the dog and its pup keeping each other company across the wide and silent emptiness, the way good companions do, leaning close, travelling together, never quite alone. The pup, small as it appears to us, is one of the most extraordinary objects in our entire neighbourhood of the galaxy. It is what astronomers call a white dwarf, the cooling, glowing heart left behind when a star much like our own reaches the end of its long life. It burned through its great store of fuel and shed its outer layers out into the surrounding space, leaving only its dense and brilliant core behind. What remains is the ember of a star, a glowing memory of all it used to be, resting beside its still living companion, an old, old fire banked down to a single bright coal in the dark. And though Sirius B is small enough to be only about the size of the Earth, it carries within that small body very nearly the entire mass of our Sun. A whole sun's worth of material, pressed down and gathered in and folded into a ball no wider than the very planet you're resting on tonight. The mass of 1,000,000 Earths squeezed into the space of one. Its matter is packed so impossibly tight that a single spoonful of it would weigh more than the strongest hands in the world, working together, could ever begin to lift. And yet that spoonful would be small enough to hold in the palm of a hand. It is one of the densest things we have ever found anywhere in the cosmos. And yet it simply turns out there in perfect silence, calm and unhurried, circling its bright twin with the slow, ancient ease of all the deep things in the sky. There is something almost dreamlike in trying to picture it. A whole star, the mass of our mighty sun, pressed down into the small round shape of a single planet, and still glowing, still turning, still keeping its place in the dance. It is the kind of fact the mind cannot quite grasp, and does not need to grasp. You may let it rest there, beautiful and strange, the way you might hold a heavy stone in your palm and feel its weight without ever needing to measure it. The cosmos is full of these impossibilities, and the brightest star in our sky keeps one of the strangest of them all tucked at its side. And somehow, knowing that such a thing can simply be, out there in the calm of the dark, makes the world feel both larger and kinder at once. To make such a thing, a star must press its own substance inward with a force we can barely imagine. Gravity folding the old core in upon itself, tighter and tighter, until the very atoms are packed close as grains of sand on an endless shore. And there it holds, balanced, neither collapsing further nor flying apart, a small sphere of impossible weight resting in perfect equilibrium. It took the long ending of a whole star to make this one object, and now it simply rests, doing nothing at all but glowing and turning beside its brighter twin. The fiercest of endings settled at last into the deepest of calms. The arms begin to feel a little heavier, don't they, as the mind wanders among these wonders. There is nothing here to solve, nothing to work out, nothing to keep hold of. The breath has begun to slow on its own, even and unhurried, rising and falling like a low tide. You're doing nothing at all but resting in the warm dark, listening, while two distant stars turn around each other, far above you. Let the heaviness come. Let it sink into your legs and the long muscles of your back and the small bones of your hands. There is nowhere you need to be but exactly here. The faint companion holds another marvel too, for though it long ago stopped making any new light of its own, its small surface still burns astonishingly hot, hotter even than the glowing face of its great bright partner. It is dim to our eyes only because it is so small, a tiny, intensely hot point of white, where Sirius A is a broad sphere of fire. All the leftover heat of its finished life is pressed now into so small a space that it glows a fierce, brilliant white, and will go on glowing for ages almost beyond counting. So the quietest member of the pair is, in its own hidden way, the most fervent of the two, a small white coal, hotter than the flame beside it, yet giving off only the faintest light. The smallest things, sometimes, hold the most surprising fire. The great bright star, for its part, belongs to a family of stars that astronomers gather together by the colour and character of their light. Sirius A is what they call a main sequence star, a star in the long, steady, shining prime of its life, fusing its fuel at its core and pouring the light out into the dark just as our own sun does. It is of a type whose light runs clean and white and a little blue, the mark of a hot and vigorous star still in the fullness of its strength. So the dog star is not some strange exception in the heavens, but a particularly near and brilliant member of a great and common family of suns. Even the most dazzling light in our sky is, at heart, simply a healthy star, doing the ordinary work that stars have always done. The discovery of the small dim pup did far more than complete a pretty picture, for it opened one of the very first windows into a kind of star no one had ever truly understood. When astronomers worked out that this faint companion was so heavy, and yet so small and so impossibly dense, they realised they were looking at something genuinely new, the remnant of a star that had finished its shining life. The little pup became one of the earliest white dwarfs ever recognised for what it was, and through it, people began to understand where stars go when their great fires at last grow cold. So much of what we know about the long lives and quiet endings of the stars began, in part, with this one faint speck hidden in the glare of the dog star. And that same small, dense companion would later help confirm one of the most profound ideas humanity has ever had about the universe. Because the white dwarf is so heavy and so tightly packed, its gravity is enormously strong right at its surface, tens of thousands of times stronger than the pull that holds you gently to your bed tonight, strong enough that the light climbing away from it must spend a tiny breath of its own energy in the escaping, shifting ever so faintly in colour as it goes, reddening by the smallest measure simply from the effort of leaving. A great new theory of gravity had predicted exactly this effect, that weight itself could tug on a ray of light, and when astronomers at last measured it in the pale glow of Sirius B, there it was, precisely as foretold, written into the colour of the star. A faint companion, glimpsed beside the dog star, helped show that even light itself bends to the weight of things. The deepest truths are sometimes written in the smallest, palest lights of all. How that heavy, fervent ember first came to be, and the long, unhurried dance the two stars share across the slow decades, opens now like a door into far older stories still. For this same brilliant star, long before anyone knew of dwarfs or distances, shaped the rhythm of whole civilizations far below it, out in the deserts and along the great slow rivers of the ancient world. In the deep silence of those distant centuries, long before anyone had dreamed of dwarfs, or distances, or hidden companions, there were people who watched Sirius with a devotion we can scarcely imagine today, and none watched it more closely or more lovingly than the people of ancient Egypt. To them this star was no mere curiosity hung in the dark. It was a keeper of time, a herald, a faithful clock set into the very ceiling of the heavens, more dependable than any water clock or shadow on the sand. Out in the warm desert nights, beneath skies so clear and black that the stars came down almost to the dunes, the priests and the watchers followed its comings and goings with extraordinary care, year upon year, for they had learned a precious thing, that the rhythm of the dog star was woven into the rhythm of the great river that gave them all their life. A single point of light, watched closely enough, can become the steady heartbeat of an entire civilization, and so it was for them for thousands of years. What they watched for, above all else, was one particular moment, the morning each year when Sirius returns. For one long stretch of every year, around 70 days in all, the star vanishes from view entirely, lost in the brightness near the sun, gone as though it had never been there at all. And then, on one long-awaited dawn, it reappears, rising low in the east just before the sunrise, a single spark of white kindling in the pale grey light, glittering for only a few short minutes before the coming day washes it away again. Astronomers today call this the heliacal rising, the very first dawn appearance of a star after a long season of absence. To the watching Egyptians, this fleeting glimpse, this first faint return of the dog star at daybreak, was among the most important events of their entire turning year. Their whole calendar pivoted upon it, a year measured, quite literally, by the homecoming of a single star, by the first thin gleam of it above the eastern sand. The reason for all that watching was the river, the great, slow, life-giving Nile. Year after year, the first reappearance of Sirius at dawn came at almost exactly the same time as the annual flooding of that river, the broad, unhurried flood that crept up over the cracked summer earth, spreading dark, rich silt across the waiting fields and making the very desert bloom and turn green. Without that flood, there was only dust and famine. With it, there was bread for another year. To a watching people, it seemed as though the rising of the star and the rising of the waters were bound together, the heavens above announcing the great gift of the earth below. The dog star became the bringer of the flood, the silent signal that the land was about to be reborn, green and generous and alive, for another whole year. Imagine trusting a single distant point of light so completely that its faint return meant the very return of life itself, spreading across the fields. In the eyes of those ancient people, this star was nothing less than a goddess. They called her Sopdet, and pictured her as a radiant figure crowned with a single bright point of light, the living embodiment of the star itself walking across the sky. Later, peoples knew her by other names, in other tongues, and she became woven together with the great goddess Isis, beloved above so many others, but her brilliance never once dimmed in the telling. She was the one whose coming foretold abundance, the shining herald of the waters, the bright lady of the year's great renewal. Whole temples were carefully aligned so that her first dawnlight would fall straight down a long corridor of stone, through hall after darkened hall, to touch the far inner wall for only a few mornings each year. Picture that single thread of starlight slipping at daybreak through a doorway built for it 1,000 years before, laid for a few moments across the cool temple floor. A whole sacred imagination grew up, slowly, around that one returning spark. So when you look up at Sirius tonight, you gaze at a star that was once honoured as a giver of life to an entire people. So precisely did the Egyptians track this return, year upon year, that their watching revealed a grand and hidden wheel of time. The dawn rising of Sirius and the everyday calendar of counted days slipped ever so slightly out of step with one another, by only the smallest amount each year, and it took an immense span, more than 1,000 years, for the two to fall back into perfect agreement again. This long, slow, turning cycle, this great wheel of returning, became one of the most remarkable patterns the ancient watchers ever traced across the heavens. To follow a rhythm so slow that no single human life could ever see it complete itself, and yet to trust it and to know, deep down, that it was surely there, that is a humbling kind of patience. The dog star taught them to think in spans of time far longer than a life, and that careful watching gave a gift that has come all the way down to you. By measuring the time from one dawn rising of Sirius to the next, counting the days year after year, the Egyptians came to know how long a true year really was, that it runs not a tidy 360 days, but very nearly 365 and a quarter, the slow extra fraction that our leap years still quietly gather up. And that hard-won knowledge fed into the calendars that passed, through many hands and many centuries, all the way to the calendar hanging on your own wall tonight. The way you mark the slow turning of your seasons still carries within it the faintest echo of those long-ago watchers standing in the cool dawn, breath misting in the air, counting the days until the dog star came home. Time itself, measured by a single point of light, high in the dark. Let the mind drift now among those gathered stories, like a single leaf turning on dark, still water, touching one, then another, then floating on, keeping none of them, easy and unhurried in the warm dark. The leaf does not steer and does not hurry. It only turns and drifts and is carried, out past one bright star, and the long web of tales it has gathered around itself across the ages. The Egyptians were far from alone in their love of this star, for very nearly every people who ever paused to look up gave Sirius a place of honour in their sky. Across the whole of the ancient world, in distant lands that never met or spoke or knew of one another, the brightest star drew the eye and stirred the imagination of all who saw it. Wherever human beings stood beneath the cold winter sky, that one searing point of light seemed to demand a name, a meaning, a story to hold it close. People separated by wide oceans and long ages all paused, each in turn, before the very same light, and all felt the same small wonder rise in them. The dog star has been a shared companion of the entire human family, a single light loved across all of time. To many of those scattered peoples, the connection to a great dog appeared again and again, almost as though the image were written somewhere deep within us all. Long before the Greeks ever drew their hound across the heavens, other distant cultures too had linked this one brilliant star to a dog, or a wolf, or some watchful animal set into the sky. Something about that bright, alert, unblinking point seemed to call up, in mind after mind, the very same idea of a loyal creature standing guard through the long dark. It is striking, and a little moving, that minds so far apart so often reached for the same picture. A guardian made of light, keeping its watch over the whole sleeping world below, as though the star itself suggested the thought to everyone who looked. From that ancient bond between the star and the dog comes a familiar phrase that may well have brushed your ears in summer: the dog days. When people speak of the long, hot, languid days of high summer as the dog days, they're unknowingly reaching back across thousands of years, all the way to Sirius. In the old reckoning, this was the season when the dog star rose close beside the sun, sharing the bright daytime sky, and the heavy golden heat of those slow weeks was imagined as the two great lights pouring down their warmth together upon the earth. The little fire of the star, the ancients thought, adding its own portion to the great fire of the sun. The phrase has long outlived the old belief that gave it birth, drifting down the centuries until it became a simple name for the sleepiest, warmest stretch of the whole year. The still afternoons when the bees go quiet, when the air shimmers above the road, when the very kind of heat settles in that invites a long, dreamless rest, with the curtains drawn against the light. There is a soft irony hidden inside that old name, one that suits a night like this one rather well. The dog days are the very hottest days of the year, and yet they're named for a star we actually see best in the cold heart of winter, when the nights are longest and the air is sharp and perfectly still. Sirius blazes its very brightest in the frozen dark, when your breath fogs in the air before you, and yet its name flavours the warmest, laziest days of all. The very same star presides over both the shivering winter midnight and the heavy golden summer afternoon, over the season of deep frost and the season of drowsy heat. A single point of light, woven into the two opposite ends of the turning year, holding them both together. And that great turning of the year is itself a kind of slow celestial breathing, for the place of Sirius in our sky changes ever so gradually across the ages. The earth does not spin perfectly upright, like a child's top held straight and still. It wobbles, very slowly, very grandly, leaning and circling as it turns, tracing one full slow cone against the stars across some 26,000 years, a single turn so vast that no civilization has ever lived to see it close. Across those long spans, this wobble shifts which stars appear where, and exactly when. So the precise dawn on which Sirius returns, the exact night on which it climbs the highest, moves little by little across the long centuries, like a great tide that takes 1,000 years to come fully in, and 1,000 more to ebb. The sky that the ancient Egyptians knew and loved was already subtly different from the sky above you now. Even the heavens are slowly rearranging themselves on a timescale far longer than any single human life could ever hold. The very pole the Earth points toward shifts across those slow millennia, so that the star our distant descendants will call their guide is not the one we know today. And so, the watchers of long ago, gazing up at the dog star, were seeing it in a place just slightly its own, risen at a moment we would find a touch unfamiliar, set against a sky tilted ever so subtly from ours, and the watchers far in our own future will see it shifted again by another small measure. We were each given only our own brief window onto the turning sky, a single frame, held for the length of a life, and within that window, Sirius shines for you exactly as it shines now. You receive the sky as it is in your own short hour, knowing it was different before and will be different after, and is yours just now, just so. Rest now inside that great slowness. There is no hurry anywhere in it, not in the turning of the year, not in the leaning of the earth, not in the return of the star. The shoulders sink, the breath grows slower and softer, and the long wheel of time turns on, all around you, slow and sure, carrying you with it, down and down toward the deep edge of sleep. That same slow grandeur lives on in the way the two stars of Sirius circle one another through the dark. The bright star and its faint companion are bound together by gravity into a long wide orbit, and one full turn of that cosmic dance takes about 50 years to complete. Think of that now, as you lie here. While a single human being is born and grows and lives a good long portion of an entire lifetime, the pup makes only one circuit around its brilliant partner. 50 years for one slow waltz across the floor of the sky. Their dance is so unhurried that you could watch your whole childhood and your whole youth unfold, and the two stars would still not have finished even a single embrace. There is no rushing such a thing. There is only the turning, slow and sure, across the decades, and that orbit is not a perfect circle, but a long drawn-out oval. So the two stars draw nearer and then farther apart across the decades, leaning close together and then easing away again. They are like two dancers who sweep in toward one another, then sweep gracefully apart only to return again and again and again. At certain seasons of their long dance, the faint companion swings inward, drawing near its bright twin. At others it glides far out into the surrounding dark before the tireless pull of gravity draws it home once more. Always coming back, always returning in the end to the one it circles. Two bodies so bound to each other that, across all that cold and silent emptiness, they never once truly let go, not for a single moment in all the long ages. At their closest approach, across that long oval path, the two stars draw in toward one another across a gap perhaps no wider than the space between our own sun and its distant outer worlds, close as such things are measured, yet still an ocean of dark between them. And then, across the slow decades, they ease apart once more, drifting out to a far greater distance, before the gathering pull of gravity folds them slowly back together again. So the very space between the two stars is forever changing, leaning in, then easing out, then leaning in again, like two long slow breaths, drawn across the span of 50 years. Even the distance between companions can rise and fall as surely as a tide upon a shore. If you could somehow stand upon a world circling that great bright star and look up into its sky, the heavens there would be a wholly different wonder, lit by a fierce blue-white sun far stronger than our own. The light would fall whiter, sharper, the shadows would lie crisper and darker on the ground. The days would burn shorter and more brilliant if such a world turned quickly on its axis. And there, hanging somewhere in that alien sky, would be the faint companion, the white dwarf, a small, intense, pale point all its own, no larger to the eye than a bright planet, yet burning a fierce, steady white, a second sun ember sharing the heavens with the first. By day it would be lost in the glare, but at dusk, as the great blue sun went down, that little white spark would linger on, casting its own faint doubled shadows across the ground. To stand beneath two suns at once, one blazing and broad, and one a tiny brilliant coal, is to feel just how various and endlessly inventive the cosmos can be, and how mild, how merciful our own single golden sun is by such a comparison. That mildness of our own star is well worth a moment of gratitude tonight, for Sirius shows us a road our own sun will one day walk. The faint companion was once a living star much like ours, warm, shining, full of fuel. And in the far, far distant future, long past anything we will ever need to hold in our hearts, our own sun too will follow a broadly similar path, swelling for a time, then shedding its outer layers out into space and settling at last into a calm white dwarf of its own. So in the small dim shape of Sirius B, we are shown a faraway image of an ending so distant it lies billions of years ahead. There is no fear at all in it. There is only the slow, dignified rhythm of how the stars live and shine and at last lie down to rest. The bright star, too, has its own appointed and unhurried fate, for stars more massive than our sun tend to live shorter, more brilliant lives. Sirius A, blazing away with all that blue-white fire, is burning through its great store of fuel faster than our own steadier sun, and so its whole life, though immense beyond any human measure, will be shorter in the long, slow arithmetic of the stars. It is young now, by all stellar reckoning, and it will shine on bright and strong for a great long while yet, but it too, in the fullness of its own time, will swell and change and settle into quiet. The brightest light in all our sky is, like every light there is, a temporary, and therefore a precious thing. And perhaps that is part of why it moves us so, knowing that even the great dog star burns within the very same rule as a single small candle flame. How young that bright star actually is may surprise you, for in the vast ages of the universe, Sirius is barely more than a child. The star we see tonight is only a few 100 million years old, while our own sun has already burned for some 4.5 billion years, and the universe itself stretches back dark and deep, near to 14 billion years and more. Set against such spans, a few 100 million years is the merest morning. When Sirius first kindled and drew its first breath of light, the dinosaurs still walked the warm earth below and would walk it for ages more. By the long measure of the cosmos, the dog star is a recent arrival, a fresh flame, newly lit in a very ancient room. The light that may reach your window tonight comes from one of the younger stars near us, a bright young thing among grey and ancient elders. There is something cheering in that thought, that the single most dazzling point in all our sky should also be one of its very youngest, burning with all the bright, quick, eager fervour of something new and only just begun. The limbs grow heavy and warm now, hearing that. You need not keep a single one of these thoughts. They may come and they may go, like the slow drift of clouds across a night sky. The breath rises and falls all on its own. You're sinking, by no effort at all, toward the deep, soft place where sleep is waiting, and there is all the time in the world to arrive there. No hurry, none at all. And the bright star moves too as all the stars move, drifting silently through the galaxy along its own long private path. Sirius is not nailed in place above us. Like every star there is, it travels, carried on its own course through the great slow turning of the galaxy, and over immense spans of time, its position relative to us very gradually shifts. The patterns we see laid out so neatly in the sky are not eternal. They are only a single still frame, caught from an unimaginably slow film, and across hundreds of thousands of years, the very shapes of the constellations will rearrange. The dog star is wandering, just as we all are, through a sky that is forever on the move. Even the great hunter with his bright belt and his loyal dog will one day be drawn out of his familiar shape, his stars scattering slowly to new places in the dark. Of all the bright stars, Sirius is among those that cross our sky a little more swiftly than the rest, not because it races, but simply because it lies so near, so that even its slow, true motion is easier to notice from close by. It is rather like a bird passing low against a far horizon. The nearer it flies, the more we see it move, while the distant geese far off seem almost to hang still in the air. Over a single long human life, the shift is far too small to catch with the eye, but the careful astronomers of 2 centuries ago could already measure it, charting how the dog star had crept across the generations a little way along the dark. So Sirius drifts on across the long centuries, shifting its place against the deeper stars behind it, a slow, silent traveller, never still, always on its way to somewhere new. And we, watching from our own brief moment, simply catch it mid-journey, passing close, lighting our nights as it goes. There was even a time, far back in the deep past, when Sirius would have shone quite differently in our sky, perhaps not even the brightest star at all back then, for as it draws nearer to us or farther away across the ages, its brilliance to our eyes slowly rises and falls. Long ago, other stars may well have worn the crown of brightest light in the dark, and in distant ages yet to come, Sirius will dim again from our view as it continues on its endless way, and some other star somewhere out there will inherit the title. But for now, in this one long, fortunate span of time we happen to inhabit, the dog star is the brightest of them all, and it is shining over you tonight. By the simple grace of when you were born, you live in the very age of its glory. Let one warm thought hold you now, that you're alive during the precise age when the most brilliant of all the night stars hangs at its very brightest. The breath softens further. The bed seems to hold you a little more closely now, and you are here for this single, fortunate, fleeting moment, resting beneath a star at the great height of all its shining. And the colour of that shining is itself a message about the star, for the clean, blue-white hue of Sirius tells us, in the silent and ancient language of light, just how astonishingly hot it truly is. The cooler stars glow red and deep orange, like the last embers of a dying fire settling low in the grate. The hottest stars of all burn white, then blue, like the fierce bright heart of a candle flame. The crisp, icy, silvery whiteness of Sirius reveals a surface nearly twice as hot as our own sun, far hotter than the mellow yellow light we wake beneath each ordinary day. So when you notice that sharp, blue-white spark trembling in the dark, you're in fact reading the star's own temperature, with nothing but your own 2 eyes, its very heat written plainly into its colour. The sky speaks quite plainly to us, after all, if only we learn its tongue. That the heavens should speak so openly to anyone who pauses to look is its own small comfort. The colour of a star, the return of a light, the slow wheel of the seasons, all of it is there, freely for the looking. You need no instrument, no learning, only your own upturned face and a little stillness. And tonight you do not even need that. You may simply rest, while the slow wheel of the seasons turns on above the rooftops, the winter stars wheeling westward a hair's breadth at a time, keeping their own quiet time in the warm and waiting dark. That same vivid blue-white brilliance is also why, of all the fixed stars in the wide heavens, Sirius is the one most often mistaken for something else entirely. Because it shines so brightly, and because it shimmers so wildly when it sits low on the horizon, flashing and sparking through its hidden colours as our restless air bends and scatters its ancient light. People sometimes glimpse it and wonder if it might be a distant aircraft, or some strange unexplained glow, or even a thing not of this world at all. It is, in plain truth, only our nearest brilliant neighbour among the stars, twinkling fiercely through the thick, low air near the ground. The strangest, most arresting light in all the dark turns out, in the end, to be only an old friend, caught for a moment in the living breath of our own restless sky. Among all the many lights that fill the heavens, only a small handful ever truly outshine it, and never, not once, the real stars of the night. The moon, of course, outshines it easily, riding its broad silver path across the dark, and a few of the very brightest planets can outshine it for a time, when they happen to swing near in their wandering. But among the actual stars, the distant suns that fill the whole of the dark, none surpasses Sirius from where we stand and look. It is the undisputed monarch of the entire starry night, brighter than every other sun we're able to see, second among all the night's lights only to our own pale moon and the nearest few wandering planets. A king among the fixed stars, holding its ancient court across the full sweeping arc of the sky. The Watchers of the Sky have for thousands of years sorted the stars into ranks, ordered by how brightly each one shines, and Sirius sits above them all, brighter even than the very topmost rank, in a place almost entirely its own. It became, long ago, the great standard against which the brilliance of all other stars could be measured, the brightest single rung on the whole long ladder of the night. To know that there is one clear champion of brightness in all the heavens, one single, undisputed brightest light, brings a small and tidy satisfaction to the resting mind, a sense of order, kept across the whole wide, scattered dark. One light, set above all the others, easy to find, easy to love. Yet for all its dazzling brilliance to our eyes, Sirius is not the most powerful star there is, only one of the very closest of the truly bright ones. Out in the deep and distant galaxy there are stars so vast and so luminous that they would drown Sirius from the sky entirely if only they happened to sit as near. Some of those far giants pour out the light of many thousands of suns, far more than our own bright neighbour, and yet they lie so unthinkably distant that they appear to us only as modest points, or cannot be seen at all without a telescope to gather their faint light. So the brightest star in all our sky owes its crown, in large part, to simple nearness. What shines most brightly in our own small view is very often only what stands the closest. Nearness is its own kind of brightness, and we are truly fortunate to see it as well as we do, for Sirius happens to sit in a part of the sky that very nearly all the world can share. It can be seen from almost everywhere that people live and sleep, rising for those in the far cold north, climbing high overhead for those who dwell nearer the warm middle of the world, a single star shared across very nearly the entire human family. Few of the truly brilliant stars are so widely visible to all. Wherever you happen to be resting your head tonight, there is a very good chance that this same dog star is shining somewhere over your own dark horizon, the very star that has watched over countless others, in countless distant places, on countless nights exactly like this one. A shared light for a sleeping world. To find it for yourself, should you ever wish to on some clear and frosty evening, is the very simplest thing in the world, for Sirius hangs just below, and a little to one side, of the most famous pattern of stars there is. Find the three bright stars set in a short, straight, even row that form the belt of the Great Hunter, and follow the line of that belt downward, and it points, like an unhurried arrow, straight to Sirius blazing below. Sky watchers have leaned on this one trick for ages beyond counting, letting the hunter's own belt guide the wandering eye down to the dog star, waiting there at his heel. It is a small, lovely piece of knowledge to carry with you through your life, that the brightest star in all the sky is always just a single glance away from the most recognizable shape in the dark. That hunter and his shining dog rise together, and they set together, keeping each other company across the whole long arc of the night. Through the cold winter hours, the great hunter climbs the eastern sky with Sirius following close and bright behind him, and the two of them sweep slowly up and over and then down toward the west, as the earth turns beneath them in the dark. The hunter never once leaves his dog behind, and the faithful dog never strays from its master's heel. Night after night they make the very same journey across the whole of the heavens, an ancient and devoted pair, crossing all the dark together in unbroken company. There is something deeply soothing in that reliability, in lights that return in their own proper order every single night, without fail, the way the same beloved face appears at the same window, year upon year, and never disappoints. And so the chest loosens, the jaw eases, and the body grows heavier still now, and that is good and right and welcome. The mind has set down all it was carrying through the day, the way the hands have gone soft and open at your sides. Let the hunter and his dog wheel slowly, endlessly, overhead, in the quiet theatre of your imagination, and let yourself wheel slowly downward too, towards sleep, in no hurry at all, safe and warm beneath the turning sky. There is only this now, the warm dark, the slow breath, and the steady lights turning. Beyond the bright star and its hidden pup, the wider neighbourhood of Sirius within the galaxy is itself a marvel, for this brilliant pair travels through the dark of space in the loose company of other stars that seem to share its motion. Astronomers have noticed over the long years of watching that a small scattered gathering of stars, strewn across quite different parts of our sky, in constellations that seem to have nothing to do with one another, appears nonetheless to move through the galaxy together, all of them sliding along a broadly similar path, like a loose flock of birds crossing a vast open evening sky. Some of them are bright stars you might know by name, scattered far apart to the eye, yet bound by this shared and secret drift. Whether they were all born together long ago from the very same great cloud, or simply fell into step with one another over the slow ages, they share a common heading now, a single direction through the deep dark. Even the brightest, most solitary-seeming star may travel in company, never truly alone in all that wide emptiness, and that bright star is not only luminous, but truly large, a sun considerably broader across than our own. Sirius A stretches well beyond the width of the sun, a great sphere of churning blue-white fire turning slowly in the deep. If you could somehow lift it up and set it down where our own sun now sits, it would loom noticeably larger across the daytime sky and pour down a fiercer, whiter light across all our days. Yet from our own merciful distance, all that vast size collapses inward to a single dimensionless point, a spark with no measurable width at all to the naked eye. It is humbling and calming both at once, to know that the tiny gleam you could cover with the tip of one finger is, in truth, an entire blazing sun, vast beyond all imagining, made small only by the simple kindness of distance. The surface of that great sun churns and glows with a heat almost wholly beyond our grasp, some 10,000 degrees, far hotter than anything in our ordinary daily world. And yet, across the long empty miles of space, that roaring furnace arrives at your eyes as a single thin thread of silver, cool enough to rest beneath, faint enough to cover with a fingertip. All that violence, all that fire and fury has been smoothed by the great distance into something you can look upon in perfect, untroubled ease. It is a little like watching a vast storm from very far away, where all the lightning and all the thunder become only a soundless shimmer of light upon the horizon, harmless, almost beautiful, to behold from where you safely rest. The faint companion, the small white dwarf, holds a wholly different kind of heat, a slow, fading warmth, for it no longer burns with any fuel of its own, anywhere inside it. The pup is no longer making fresh light the way a living star does, hour after hour, year after year. It is simply glowing from the heat it has long stored within itself, the leftover warmth of a great fire that has finally gone out, cooling ever so gradually across the long ages of the dark. It is, in the truest and most literal meaning of the word, an ember, radiating the last of its ancient stored warmth out into the surrounding cold, and it will go on cooling for an almost endless span of time, billions upon billions of years, dimming so gradually that the dimming itself can scarcely be imagined. A patience beyond all patience, settling toward perfect stillness. There is no sorrow in that slow cooling, only a deep and dignified calm. The little star has done all its shining, its long bright work is finished, and now it simply rests, releasing its warmth into the dark by the most unhurried of measures. It is the very image of a peaceful ending, not a sudden going out, but a slow, slow settling toward quiet, across spans of time so vast they make the whole of human history seem a single passing breath. To cool that gently, for that long, is its own kind of grace. Let that be the thought you sink into now. You lie very far indeed from all the fire of the stars, wrapped warm in your own small dark, where nothing can reach you but their thin silver light, cool as frost on a window pane. The breath slows, the shoulders settle, and the deep peace of all that distance folds itself around you, like a blanket drawn up against the cold. What the small white dwarf's slow cooling promises, far down the long corridors of time, is something almost too gentle ever to fear. For one day, unthinkably distant, the faint companion will fade entirely into darkness. After enough ages have passed, more ages than the universe itself has yet known, an object like Sirius B will at last cool into a cold, dark, silent thing, no longer glowing at all, resting forever in the deep. But that day lies so impossibly far ahead that it carries no weight at all in our own small lives, no sting, no sorrow, no shadow falling across the night. It is simply how the long story ends, in rest, in deep silence, in a final and peaceful dark. Even the stars themselves in the great fullness of time lie down at last to sleep, and there is real peace in that thought, not fear at all, but peace, the very same peace that is settling over you now. Closer to home, the bright star marks the seasons for us in a dependable way, for the rising of Sirius in the evening sky has long been a herald of the coming winter. When the dog star begins to climb the eastern dark soon after the sun has set, the long, cold, deeply starry nights have truly arrived. For watchers across the northern half of the world, its appearance high in the dark evening means frost, and bare black branches, and the rapt hush of the year's coldest months. It is the lamp of winter, the bright companion of the longest nights, returning year after year to preside over the whole season of rest and stillness. And so much of the natural world grows still and slow within its season, drawing inward, settling down, waiting in the cold for the slow return of warmth and light. The whole world leans toward rest beneath it. For those who make their homes in the southern half of the world, that very same star tells an entirely warmer, more golden story, for there it climbs the evening sky during the balmy evenings of high summer. Beneath those southern skies, Sirius rises high and bright in the warm season, hanging over mild nights and open windows and the long, lingering golden evenings of the world's other half, over gardens still warm from the day and the sound of crickets in the grass. Where a northern child knows it as the cold blue lamp of the deepest winter, a southern child knows it as the bright herald of long, lazy holiday nights. One single star, the very same brilliant point of light, can mean the deep heart of winter to one half of the world and the warmth of summer to the other, depending only and entirely on where one happens to stand upon the great slowly turning globe. We all share the very same sky overhead, even as that one sky tells each of us a slightly different and deeply personal story of the year. Sailors and travellers too, all across the long ages, have leaned on this one bright light, for Sirius has served for thousands of years as a faithful guide across trackless seas and vast empty deserts. Because its blaze is so strong and so unmistakable, and because it is so dependably placed within the sky, rising and setting in the same unhurried way, night after night, it became a trusted marker for all those who needed to find their direction in the dark, a fixed point of light in a wide and shifting world. Voyagers out upon black, heaving oceans, with nothing around them but salt wind and the creak of timber, steered their small ships by it. Wanderers crossing vast night deserts, the cold sand silver under the stars took their careful bearings from it. There is a deep and ancient comfort in a light you can truly trust, a star that is always exactly where it ought to be, a faithful companion for anyone far from home and alone in the dark. Across the wide, warm waters of the Pacific too, the great seafaring peoples who crossed thousands of miles of open ocean knew this brilliant star intimately and steered their long voyages by it. To navigators sailing between scattered islands, with no land at all in sight, for days and nights on end, only the heave of the swell and the long curve of the horizon, the brightest stars became a living map laid out across the whole of the night sky. They learned by heart precisely where each great star rose and exactly where it set, and which star would follow which up out of the sea, and they held their course true by them through the long dark hours, watching one rise as another sank. Sirius, blazing and unmistakable, was among the most trusted of all these guiding lights, a faithful lantern for those crossing the largest empty spaces on the whole of the earth. To find your way home across an entire ocean, guided by a single point of light, takes a quiet courage and a deep and abiding trust. In some of those island traditions, the great star even helped to mark the turning of the seasons, and the proper time for certain journeys, and the rhythm of the year far out among the waves. Its rising and setting were watched and remembered, and woven carefully into the long memory of a seafaring people, knowledge passed from one generation to the next, by word and by song, with no need of any written page. To carry a whole sky in the mind, to know each star's place and hour by heart, is a kind of mastery we can scarcely picture now. And Sirius, brightest of lights, sat near the very centre of that remembered sky, guiding, marking, keeping its steady place above the endless dark water. So much of the love we feel for Sirius comes down, in the end, to that one simple quality, its steadiness, its unfailing return. Through all the endless turning of the seasons and the slow drift of the long ages, it comes back, night after night, year after year, the very same searing point of light, in its own appointed and familiar place. Whole civilizations have risen and crumbled and fallen away beneath it. Entire languages have been born and flourished, and then been lost and forgotten by all. And still it returns, bright and unchanged, keeping its long watch over a world that changes endlessly below it. To rest beneath such a constant thing is to rest beneath a kind of promise, that some lights truly do endure, and that some things will always come back to us, and so the breath settles deeper still. The shoulders have let go of all they were holding through the day. The mind wanders now among stars and rivers and ships upon dark water, without ever trying to hold a single one in place. Let that wandering be a comfort to you, a soft permission to finally let go and to rest. Beneath the great dog star, low and bright over the frozen fields, you have only to be still and to be carried, and to let yourself slowly, sweetly go down into the deep. For all the many things now charted and measured about Sirius, much of its deeper nature stayed hidden until rather recently, for the true character of its faint companion was only understood within the last century or so. The fact that the little pup is a white dwarf, an impossibly dense ember of a long-dead star, was a discovery that genuinely astonished the very astronomers who pieced it all together. They could scarcely believe that so much mass could be crammed and folded down into so small a body, a whole sun's substance, gathered into a sphere no wider than the Earth. The numbers themselves seemed at first to defy all reason, and yet there it plainly was, circling the bright star in the dark, a tiny object holding the whole heart of a sun within it. Sometimes the universe keeps its strangest treasures hidden in plain sight, tucked away inside the glare of something brilliant, waiting to be found. Understanding that dense ember helped open a whole new chapter in how we picture the long lives of the stars, for the faint companion of Sirius became one of the first true windows into what a dying star actually becomes in the end. Before such objects were properly understood, no one quite knew where the great stars went when their fires finally went out and grew cold. The companion of Sirius, so very close to us, and so wonderfully able to be studied, helped reveal that stars do not simply vanish away into nothing, but instead settle down into these dense, dimly glowing remnants. A single small point of light, hiding shyly beside a brilliant one, helped teach us the truth of how the great suns grow old. So very much knowledge, drawn from one faint speck in the dark. The light of that one faint speck is so utterly overwhelmed by its brilliant partner that simply seeing it at all remains a delicate task. Even now, even with all our finest instruments, for the sheer glare of Sirius A all but drowns the little dwarf entirely. The bright star outshines its small companion thousands of times over, so that the pup is forever swimming in a sea of its twin's light. To glimpse it, even through fine modern telescopes, one must catch it at just the right moment within its long, slow orbit, when it has swung far enough out from the blinding light of its great twin, and even then it shows only as a tiny pale spark trembling at the very edge of the glare. It is rather like trying to see a single small candle held close beside a roaring searchlight, the little flame all but lost within the flood of brightness, and so the faint companion keeps much of its privacy, even still, only stepping briefly into clear view before slipping back again toward the glare. Some beautiful things reveal themselves only rarely, and only ever to the truly, deeply patient. Even the very path of the light, travelling from Sirius to our waiting eyes, carries a wonder hidden within it, for that ancient light bends, ever so slightly, as it crosses the curving fabric of space itself. Every heavy thing in the cosmos, every star, every dark and silent mass, presses a gentle dimple into the smooth fabric of space around it, the way a heavy stone set on a stretched sheet draws the cloth down into a soft bowl. And any ray of light passing near must follow the lie of that bent fabric, leaning a hair's breadth from its straight path as it goes. So across the vast dark distance, the warping of space and time, by the great masses the light happens to pass near along its way, can nudge a single beam of starlight by the faintest of degrees. We do not notice it with our own eyes, of course. It is far too subtle for that. But it is truly there, woven into the long journey, a reminder that even the empty dark is not truly empty, that space itself has a shape and a curve, and that light follows it faithfully. The very fabric of the whole cosmos curves and flows and bends, and that ancient light from the distant dog star rides all of those curves all the way home to you. Let that thought carry you now. That single thread of light has crossed 8.5 years of dark and ridden the curves of space itself, and slipped down through the whole restless ocean of our air, all of it, every long mile of the journey, simply to arrive at your closing eyes tonight. It wants nothing of you. It only completes its long journey and rests, at last, upon you. And you may rest now too. The breath comes slow and even. The hands lie open and still, and the old light has finally come home, and the star itself, like every star that has ever shone, is made mostly of the lightest and most abundant substances in all the universe, the simple, primordial stuff from which all the suns are kindled and built. At its blazing heart, Sirius is a great churning sphere of the most common elements there are. Hydrogen above all, the same ancient material that fills the whole of the cosmos, from which every single star is born. The brilliant flood of light it pours across the years to find us is made deep within its core, where these simple substances are pressed and heated under unimaginable weight, until they release their stored energy outward as light. So that fierce, searing, white-blue spark is, at its very root, made of the plainest, most ordinary stuff there is, only transformed by pressure and heat and time into something dazzling. The commonplace made radiant, the ordinary made into wonder, and everything that you are in some literal way is kin to that distant fire, for the very elements within your own body were forged long ago in the blazing hearts of stars. The iron carried in your blood, the calcium woven through your bones, the carbon threaded through every living cell of you, all of it, every atom, was made deep within stellar furnaces, then scattered far across space when ancient stars reach the ends of their long lives. You are quite literally built up out of old starlight, out of the cooled ash of suns that lived and shone and died long before our own sun was ever born. So when you gaze up tonight at Sirius, you're not entirely separate from it. You're made of the very same cosmic stuff, a small warm gathering of stardust gazing up at a great and brilliant one. We, and the stars, are family, so let that one warm thought rest over you now, like a heavy blanket drawn up to your chin. The truth that you are kin to the stars, made of the very same ancient material, a small child of old and distant suns. The night sky above you is something close and known and kindred. It is your own distant family, shining overhead while you rest, and so the body grows softer and warmer and more still. You belong here, beneath these old lights, just as surely as they belong up there, above you. You are home, here, in the dark, among your own. The light that reaches us tonight tells us not only what Sirius is, but where it has been and where it is going. For embedded within that single beam is the whole slow story of its long motion through space. By studying the star's light with great care, astronomers can sense whether it is drifting toward us or away, and how swiftly it is moving, and which way it is truly bound on its long path through the galaxy. The light itself carries all of this home to us, written in subtle shifts far too fine for the unaided eye to catch. So that single silver thread arriving at your window is a kind of letter, telling us the star's long history and its present course, its distant past and its far future, all of it folded carefully into a single ray of light. The whole cosmos is forever speaking to us, in the ancient language of light. And what that light reveals is that Sirius is, for now, very gradually drawing closer to us across the ages, brightening by the faintest measure as the slow millennia pass. The dog star is approaching, ever so slowly, on its long winding path through the galaxy, and as it draws nearer it grows almost invisibly brighter in our sky. For many tens of thousands of years yet to come, it will keep up this slow approach, glowing a touch more brilliantly with each passing age, before its long course finally carries it onward and away again into the deep. So we are living in a long and fortunate season of its nearness, a slow, golden age of the brightest of all the stars, with the very brightest of its shining still quietly yet to come, long after us. And then, across spans of time far beyond all human measure, it will at last begin its own long, slow farewell, drawing away again into the deeper dark, growing fainter across the unimaginable future. Tens of thousands of years from now, and then hundreds of thousands more after that, Sirius will ease gradually farther from us, dimming as it journeys ever onward, until at last some other star, somewhere out there in the dark, takes up its place as the brightest light in all the sky. But all of that waits so unthinkably far down the long road of time that it touches nothing at all in our own small, warm, present lives. For now, and for all the long time that any of us will ever know or ever need, the dog star is here, and it is near, and it is bright. The farewell is not for us. The shining, all of it, is. And the sheer vastness of these timescales can quiet a busy mind in the most merciful way. For set against the long, slow life of even a single star, all our small hurry simply dissolves into nothing. The star will brighten for 50,000 years, then dim again for hundreds of thousands more, and a single human life is only the briefest flicker against such enormous spans. Whatever weighed so heavily on the day just past, whatever still seems so urgent in the back corners of the mind, grows small and soft and very far away beside the unhurried ages of the stars. There is no hurry up there in the dark. There has never once been any hurry the stars have ever known, and tonight there is no hurry left in you either. You may let the deep slowness of the heavens slow you too, all the way down towards sleep. So let the breath grow as slow as ancient starlight. Let the mind grow as wide and as soft as the deep dark spaces between the stars. Across all those long ages the great sky asks no haste of you, and sets no course you must follow. There is only rest now, and the slow turning of the heavens overhead, carrying you with it. The two stars of Sirius were not always quite the partners we see today. for their long-shared history holds a quiet drama within it, slow and very old. The faint little pup, the white dwarf, was once the larger and brighter of the two, but being larger, it lived its bright life all the more quickly and reached its ending first. As it swelled toward the end of its days, before settling at last into its small, dense form, it shed great soft clouds of its outer self out into the surrounding space. And so the dazzling star we love tonight is, in a quiet sense, the one that has outlived its grander partner. There is a tenderness in that the small faint ember, resting now beside the great bright flame, was, long ago, the mightier of the two. That slow shedding of a star's outer layers is one of the most beautiful sights in all the cosmos, though here it happened long before any human eye could have witnessed it. When a star like the old companion lets go of its outer self, those vast clouds of glowing gas drift outward into the dark in luminous shells, lit from within by the small hot core left behind, forming delicate rings and glowing veils and great faint bubbles of pale rose and green and blue spread across the deep. Some take the shape of a perfect smoke ring, some of an hourglass or a butterfly or a single vast unblinking eye. They are among the loveliest things the whole night sky ever makes, and they hang there, soundless, for tens of thousands of years before they fade. The clouds that once surrounded the companion of Sirius have long since thinned and dispersed, scattered away into the surrounding space. But somewhere out there, even now, other dying stars are doing the very same thing, breathing out their final soft halos of light into the dark. Hidden deep within that small, dense pup is a heart made of the very stuff that living things are built from, for the core of a white dwarf like the companion of Sirius is rich in carbon, that same patient element woven through every green leaf and every living cell and every breath you take. Pressed under unimaginable weight, in the silent centre of that tiny star lies a great store of this most familiar of all substances, the humble building block of all life as we know it. And carbon, squeezed and chilled across long enough ages, can settle into a single vast crystal, so that the cooling heart of such a star slowly becomes something very like an immense diamond, the size of a planet, turning in the dark. It is a moving thought that the faint companion of the dog star carries, locked away within its silent heart, a vast treasure of the very element from which you yourself are partly made. The same humble stuff, resting in a sleeping star and in a sleeping person, far apart in the dark. The bright star also turns upon itself, spinning in the deep, the way our own sun and our own earth turn beneath us. It wheels quite quickly, in fact, sweeping its blazing blue-white surface around in a matter of hours rather than days, far faster than our own slow sun. Every great sphere of fire in the heavens turns in its own way upon some unseen axis, and Sirius is no exception. Even the stars turn then, the very way the earth turns beneath you each night, the way so many things in this whole universe move in great wheeling circles, rotation and orbit, and the slow wheeling of the entire sky. Everywhere you look, the cosmos turns without any hurry at all, around and around in the dark. If you could somehow watch the two stars across a whole long human lifetime, you would see the faint pup trace a slow loop around its bright partner, a single great oval drawn unhurriedly across the dark. From our own distant vantage, that loop appears as a delicate ellipse, sketched out slowly across the years as the small dim star swings far out wide, then curves back again toward the brilliance at its heart. To map even one of those long orbits, astronomers must watch and wait, and gather their careful measurements across whole decades, a quiet labour passed from one generation of watchers to the next. Some shapes in the heavens are so slow to draw that no single person ever sees the whole of them completed, and yet together, across time, we trace them, sink down now into that great patience, You may simply watch a small piece of the slow turning, then let your eyes fall closed and trust the rest of the great dance to carry on without you, out there in the dark, around and around for ages yet to come. Your breathing has gone long and easy, like the slow swing of that oval orbit itself. The whole body is still and unhurried, and the long, slow loop turns on, far above the soft dark of your room. It is a quietly moving thing to consider that the brightest single light in all our heavens is, at its very heart, a pair, a togetherness, a companionship. Two stars keeping one another company across the vast and lonely dark. We so often picture the whole night sky as scattered and solitary and cold, each lonely star alone, off in its own far corner of the emptiness. And yet here, hidden within the most brilliant point of all, are two, bound together, never apart, sharing the whole long journey through the galaxy side by side, year after year, age after age. Even among the most distant stars, true companionship endures. The great and brilliant light we so love is not alone out there in the dark, and so, perhaps, neither are you. And these two stars have been turning together now for an immense and unbroken span of time, and they will go on turning far into the future, long after this one night has passed away. Through every age of human history, through every story ever told and then forgotten beneath them, the bright star and its pup have been turning and turning and turning, never once breaking apart, never letting go of one another. They were already dancing in the dark before the great pyramids were built, or even first dreamed of. They were dancing still while empires rose and flourished and crumbled away again into dust. And they are dancing yet, even now, this very moment, as you lie here in the warm dark. Some companionships are written into the very fabric of the sky itself, lasting far beyond all telling. In the great slow sweep of the galaxy, Sirius rides along with the vast, unhurried current of stars that carries everything around the distant galactic centre. Our whole neighbourhood of suns moves together in one enormous, unimaginably slow circle around the far-off heart of the galaxy, a single full turn of which takes far longer than the entire history of life upon the Earth. Sirius is caught up in that grand current, sweeping along with our own sun and all our neighbouring stars on a journey so immense it can scarcely be conceived. You are a traveller on that one great slow river of light, and so is the dog star, and so is our own sun. All of you carried around and around, across ages beyond all counting, while you drift down towards sleep. The light of Sirius has stirred not only science but poetry too, for across the long centuries it has shone within the songs and verses of countless peoples. Poets reaching for some image of pure brilliance, of brightness beyond all other brightness, again and again found themselves naming this one star. It glittered in ancient hymns and in old sea songs sung beneath the open sky, and in quiet lines written by lamplight about the cold and shining winter heavens. The oldest poets of the Greek set it in their verses as the star of late summer, blazing in the harvest dark. Later writers made it a sign of grief, or of fortune, or of fierce and dazzling beauty. To name Sirius within a poem was to summon up the very idea of dazzling light, and so the same star that guided sailors across the dark water and marked the floods upon the river also lived all along in the gentler country of human feeling. A small bright word for wonder, passed down through all the generations of those who looked up and were moved and reached for language to hold what they had seen. There is also an old little puzzle wrapped around the very colour of this star, for some accounts from the distant past seem to describe Sirius not as blue-white at all, but as a warm and glowing red. Certain watchers of long ago in a handful of old surviving records spoke of the dog star using words we would sooner use today for the deep red stars, and ever since curious minds have wondered just what it was they truly saw. Perhaps it was only the reddening of a bright star glimpsed low through the thick horizon air, where light is bent and warmed to amber. Perhaps it was something else entirely, now lost to us. The small mystery has never been fully settled, and there is a charm in that, a soft, unanswered question, drifting down to us across the centuries, simply waiting, patient and unhurried, like a riddle whispered once in the dark. Whatever its colour may have been in those old and distant eyes, the sheer brilliance of Sirius has earned it a rare distinction, for it shines so brightly that it can, under just the right conditions, be glimpsed even in the broad blue daytime sky. From a high mountainside where the air is thin and clean, or through a telescope that knows exactly where to aim, a careful and well-placed watcher can sometimes find that single point of light still burning through the daylight, a pale silver pinprick against the blue, faint but unmistakable, while the sun rides high overhead. To see a star in the middle of the day is a rare and almost secret thing, a small piece of the deep night lingering on into the light. It is a soft reminder that the stars do not truly go away when the morning comes. They are always there, always shining, simply hidden for a little while behind the dazzle of the daytime sky, waiting to return to us again at dusk. Something in the chest loosens a little at that thought. The stars are always there, even unseen, and so you may set down your watch and your holding on and simply lie still. You may let your eyes fall closed and trust that all the lights go on shining behind the dark of your own eyelids, just as they shine on, unseen, behind the bright blue veil of day. The breath slows, the shoulders ease, and you settle a little further into the warm and waiting dark. The return of Sirius, each and every year, was once so dependable that, in many places across the world, it became woven into the very practical work of living, into the planting of crops, the timing of the harvest, the readiness of the waiting fields. Farmers in the ancient world watched for the dog star quite as carefully as the priests ever did, for its first rising in the dawn, or its appearance in the evening dark, told them when the seasons were truly turning, when at last to sow and when to reap. A single distant star, closely observed, became a partner in the oldest and most essential of all human labours, the slow growing of food up out of the dark earth. There is something grounding in that the most distant, dazzling light in all the heavens was once a humble helper, down in the soil, in the planting of the grain. To many peoples, too, the rising of Sirius marked a time for gathering, for festival, for feasting, for the renewal of the warm bonds between people. Because its return came round at the very same season, year upon year, it became a natural marker for celebrations, for shared feasts, for the turning of one chapter of the year into the next. Whole communities would look up and see the star return to its place, and know that a certain time had come round once again, a time to come together, to mark the slow passing of the seasons, to remember and to renew and to be glad. So the dog star was never only a guide for the lone sailor or the watching farmer, it was also a gatherer of whole communities, a single shared light that called scattered people back together year after year. And the same star found its way too into the great myths and old stories that peoples told to make sense of the wide and wondrous world around them. In tale after tale across so many far apart cultures, the brightest star was given some part to play. A heavenly hound, a watchful guardian set on high, a bright soul placed among the stars, a herald of gods or of the turning seasons. These stories were the way that human beings, gazing up at the unreachable dark, drew the great heavens close and made them companionable and gave them warmth and meaning. And Sirius, the most brilliant of all the lights, naturally took a leading part in so very many of them. To weave a story around a star is to befriend it, to turn the vast, cold, silent dark into something warm and known and full of meaning. The old tales were a kind of love sent upward to the lights. In the long traditions of sky watching, Sirius also served as a kind of anchor, a fixed and trusted reference point against which the slow movements of so many other things in the sky could be measured. Because it shines so brightly and is so easily found and returns so dependably to its place, it became a natural landmark in the heavens, a star to measure from, to take one's bearings by, to return the wandering eye to, again and again. The slow drift of the wandering planets, the changing face of the moon, the gradual turning of the seasons, all of it could be traced against the steady presence of the dog star. There is a quiet usefulness in having one bright, reliable thing to measure all else against, one fixed point in a world that is forever in motion. And the more carefully people watched it, across all the long centuries, the more they came to learn, not only of this one star, but of the whole deep nature of the heavens themselves. The close, brilliant dog star became, over time, one of the most studied stars in all the sky, a kind of natural laboratory hung conveniently near to us, where the deep workings of the stars could be observed and slowly understood. Its light has been split into a rainbow and read line by line. Its motion through the dark has been traced across the centuries. Its faint companion has tested our boldest ideas about gravity and matter and the endings of stars. So much of what we now know, of how stars live and shine and pair off into companions and grow old and at last grow quiet, was learned, in part, through the long and loving study of this single brilliant point of light. The brightest lamp in all our night has also been, all along, one of our finest and most patient teachers. And there is one last simple gift in it, older than all the science and all the stories, for the plain act of watching Sirius rise can bring a deep and settling calm to the human heart. There is something timeless in standing out in the cold dark, waiting for a known and beloved light to climb the sky. Countless people, across countless ages, have stood just so, their breath fogging in the chill, their eyes turned eastward, waiting for the star to lift at last above the horizon. And when it comes, glittering and certain, exactly where it always comes, something within the watcher settles, and is reassured, and is at peace. To wait for a light, and to have it arrive, is one of the very oldest comforts there is. The sky keeps its quiet promises. The bright star always returns. So let the old stories drift through your mind now, like soft smoke rising. The heavenly hound, the bright guardian, the soul set among the stars. You need not hold any of them. Let them turn and fade and give way to sleep. The dark is warm, the star is steady, and you are held here, safe beneath the oldest and most beloved light in all the long memory of the world. For all the long difference in their fates, the pair were, in truth, born together, kindled from the very same great cloud of gas and dust, in the very same distant age, out of the same cold, drifting darkness that once hung where they now shine. They are not two strangers who happen to meet and fall in together somewhere in the dark. They are siblings, twins of a kind, formed side by side out of one slowly collapsing cloud, and bound to one another ever since by the tireless pull of gravity, never more than that one orbit's width apart in all the long ages since. One simply finished its course and settled into rest, while its sibling shines on. The dazzling star and its small faded ember of a companion began as two bright children of the very same cloud, and have stayed together through all the long ages since, one shining still, one quietly resting, but never once, in all that time, truly parting. Born together, and together still, after all the turning of the years, and though we often picture the small pup as circling the great bright star, the truth is subtler still, for the two of them both circle a single shared point that lies between them. Neither star sits perfectly still while the other turns. Instead, both swing slowly around their common centre, like two dancers holding hands and turning around the empty space between their clasped palms. The bright star traces a small, slow loop, the faint companion traces a larger one, and the balance point between them holds steady as they wheel together through the dark. It is a true partnership then, not one star ruling and one obeying, but both bound equally to a centre they share. Even in the heavens, the deepest bonds are the ones that turn around something held in common. Neither leads, and neither follows. They simply turn together, around the quiet place between them, as they have for ages beyond all counting. What holds that small, dense companion up against the crushing weight of its own gathered mass is one of the strangest and most beautiful things in all of nature, a new kind of pressure, unlike anything in our ordinary world. The little star is not held aloft by any burning fire as the living stars are, for its fire long ago went out and grew cold. By every ordinary reckoning, such a thing ought to collapse entirely under its own staggering weight, and yet it does not. It holds and goes on holding. Instead of fire, it is the very tiniest particles within it, packed impossibly close together, that push back against being squeezed any tighter by a subtle, invisible rule woven deep into the very fabric of matter itself, a rule that simply forbids them from being pressed past a certain point. And so the star simply holds, neither collapsing further inward nor flying apart, balanced in perfect silent stillness by a force we cannot see or hear or feel, but which keeps that tiny sun forever steady in the dark. The universe has the gentlest of ways of holding even its very heaviest things quietly in their place. Nothing strains, nothing struggles. The little star simply rests, held in perfect and effortless balance across the ages. The slow dance of the two stars has given us a gift too, for by watching exactly how they swing around their shared centre, astronomers can weigh the stars themselves. The speed and shape of that long orbit reveal, through the simple and elegant laws of gravity, just how much substance each star must hold. For the more massive the partners, the more fiercely they must pull, and the faster they must wheel about one another to keep from falling together. Measure the size of the loop and the time it takes to close, and the masses simply fall out of the arithmetic. It is how we first came to know that the bright star carries about twice the mass of our sun, and that its small, faint pup holds very nearly a whole sun's worth, folded into its tiny body. To weigh a distant star, a thing no hand could ever touch, simply by watching it dance, is a marvel of patient looking. The heavens give up their secrets gently to those who watch with care and wait. For all its dazzling fame, Sirius is also one of our very nearest stellar neighbours, among the closest handful of star systems to our own sun in all the vast dark galaxy. Only a small number of stars lie nearer to us than the dog star does, and most of those are faint and quiet things, dim red embers unseen by the ordinary eye, so that of all the stars near enough to call neighbours, this one is far and away the brightest and the loveliest. So Sirius holds a rare double distinction. It is both one of the closest stars to us, and by far the brightest in our sky, a near and brilliant companion, both at once. Of all the countless millions of stars scattered across the galaxy, most so distant their light is a faint whisper, or no whisper at all, this one dazzling flame is practically next door, close enough to feel almost like part of our own small family of suns. And because it shines so brightly, Sirius is one of the very few stars that can pierce even the glow of a great city's lights. In so many places now, the electric glow of streets and windows and passing cars washes the fainter stars away, and the night sky grows pale and shallow and nearly empty overhead, a flat orange haze where once there were thousands of stars. But Sirius, blazing and brilliant, shines through it still, one of the last points of light to remain visible, hanging low over the rooftops and the glowing streets, even above the brightest and most sleepless of cities. So, wherever you happen to be resting tonight, whether beneath dark and open country skies, or amid the amber glow of a great city that never quite sleeps, that same faithful dog star may well be shining down upon you. A small piece of the deep, wild, ancient heavens, refusing to be washed away by any light we make, a star that even the brightest of cities cannot quite hide from you. It is there, even when you cannot see it, certain and near. The body grows heavier still now, and the breath slower, as these wonders drift quietly past. Let each fact arrive, and then let it go again, like a small wave touching the shore and sliding back out into the dark. Keep none of them, carry none of them forward into sleep. You're simply lying here, breathing, letting yourself be carried, warm and safe and slowly sinking, while the star shines on, far above the rooftops, keeping its long watch over you. There is no end to the hours tonight. Nothing waits, nothing presses. There is only the slow breath and the warm dark and the gathering weight of rest settling deeper into you with every passing moment. Within its own constellation, the great hound Canis Major, Sirius reigns so brightly that it quite outshines every other star around it. The greater dog is drawn from several stars in all, a head, a body, the 4 running legs, but none of its other lights come anywhere close to the brilliance of the one that marks its heart. Sirius blazes there so fiercely that the rest of the hound seems to gather faint and dim around it, like a shape sketched in soft chalk around one single dazzling jewel. To find the constellation at all, most people simply find Sirius first and let the bright dog star lead the eye outward to the fainter stars that complete the loyal hound, the brightest light, showing the way to all the rest. So bright and so beloved is this star that it has even been named within the words of Scripture, remembered among the things of the heavens worthy of wonder. In the holy book of one of the world's great faiths, the dog star is named directly, set down by its old name as one of the marvels of creation, a light of note in the wide night sky. To be named so across the long centuries in words read and recited by countless millions of people is its own kind of immortality. The same brilliant point the ancient Egyptians worshipped and that the sailors steered by has also been held in the sacred words of a later peoples, honoured and remembered and passed on. And the peoples of the ancient Mediterranean too wove the rising of Sirius deep into the rhythm of their year and into their oldest observances. To the Greeks and the Romans, the season when the dog star first rose alongside the sun was a time of particular note, a time of heat and languor and careful watching, when certain rites were kept to ease the fierce warmth of the year. The very phrase for those sultry weeks, the dog days, comes down to us directly from their reckoning of this star. So the long, golden afternoons of high summer still carry in their very name the faint old memory of watchers in white robes, looking up to the dawn for the return of the brilliant dog star low in the east. A single star, naming a season, all these thousands of years later. Far to the south, beneath other skies, other peoples too gave this star a season of its own. Among some of the peoples of the great southern oceans and islands, the appearance of Sirius came to mark the heart of their winter, a cold, inward time, named in their own tongue for the brilliant star that ruled it. So the very same point of light that meant the rising flood to Egypt and the dog days to Rome meant deep winter to those who watched it climb the southern dark. One star, watched from every corner of the turning world, gave each people its own name for time and gathered all those scattered names round a single shining point. And those old risings have not stopped. They continue still to this very night, only shifted to new dates by the slow leaning of the earth across the centuries. The dog star still vanishes each year and still returns at dawn, exactly as it did for the ancient watchers, though the morning of its homecoming has drifted little by little away from the day they knew. So the great rhythm endures, unbroken, beneath all the long change of calendars and kingdoms. If you knew just where and just when to look, you could watch the very same return that stirred whole civilizations to wonder, the star lifting once more from the dark, exactly as it always has. There is a deep strangeness, too, in simply knowing that to look at Sirius at all is to look backward into time. The light that meets your eye left the star more than 8 years ago, so you never truly see the dog star as it is tonight, but only as it was all those years before. In a way, every glance at any star is a small act of time travel, a look into a past that has already gone. The Sirius you would see, were you to step outside, is a Sirius of years ago, preserved in its travelling light, and there is something deeply peaceful in that thought, that the night sky is not a picture of now, but a gathering of old moments, each one arriving in its own good time. So let the past and the present blur together now, the way they do up there among the stars. The difference between them softens and slips away, until there is only this one long moment holding you. The light you receive is old, and the moment you rest in is new, and both are wholly yours. And the old light comes down across all those years to rest upon you, here in the warm dark, where time itself grows soft and slow, and finally perfectly still. The same old light that carries the star's distance also carries, hidden within it, the news that Sirius is drawing nearer, for as the dog star slowly approaches us across the ages, the colour of its light is shifted by the faintest breath toward the blue end of the rainbow. It is a change far too subtle for any human eye to notice on its own. Only the most delicate instruments can tease it out from the light. But it is truly there, a tiny fingerprint of motion pressed deep into the starlight itself, telling us that this great brilliant neighbour is on its slow way toward us and not away. The light does not merely shine down upon us, it whispers of the long journey the star is making through the dark, and that whisper says, again and again, coming closer, for ages and ages yet to come. There is a quiet warmth in being approached, even by a star, in knowing that the brightest light in our sky is ever so slowly drawing near. That slow approach means something lovely for all the long future, for the dog star is not yet even at its brightest, and it will go on growing brighter still for ages and ages, long after this whole age of the world, and everyone now breathing in it, has passed quietly away into the deep past. Tens of thousands of years from now, Sirius will have drawn nearer than it shines tonight, and it will blaze a little more fiercely in the skies of people not yet born, gazed upon by eyes that do not yet exist in a world you will never see. The very best of its long shining is not behind us at all, but somewhere far ahead, saved and slowly prepared for the distant ones who will look up in some far-off century and find the dog star even more brilliant than anyone has ever known it to be. A quiet gift being made ready across the slow ages for hands and eyes that have not yet come into the world. The star is still on its long way toward its very finest hour, and we are simply fortunate to share the dark with it now on its journey there. The careful watching of Sirius also played its part in one of the grandest projects in all of human history, the slow effort to measure the true distances to the stars. For most of human time, no one knew at all how far away the stars truly lay. They were simply lights, scattered and fixed across an unreachable dark, with no way to say whether they hung just beyond the clouds or unthinkably far beyond. But as our instruments grew finer, the nearest and brightest stars, Sirius foremost among them, became some of the first whose true distances could at last be measured, the first solid rungs on a long ladder reaching out into the very depths of space. The trick was a delicate one. Across half a year, as the Earth swings from one side of the Sun to the other, a near star seems to shift by the very faintest hair against the far more distant stars behind it. The same way a finger held up at arm's length seems to jump when you look first with one eye then the other. That tiny shift, patiently measured, gives the distance. Through the study of such near, bright lights, we began to grasp the true and staggering scale of the heavens around us. The dog star helped to show us, across long years of careful looking, just how vast the universe we live in really is. And the two stars, the bright one and the faint, blend their separate lights together into the single point of brilliance that we see, for from our own great distance no unaided eye can ever split them apart again. Side by side across that vast gulf, the two of them lie so close in our line of sight that even the keenest watcher, even on the clearest and stillest of nights, sees only one star where two are truly burning. The dazzling glow of the great bright star and the small pale shine of its quiet companion arrive at us merged together into one trembling silver spark, so that the brightness we measure when we measure the dog star is in truth the gathered light of both stars at once, shining as one. Almost all of it comes streaming from the great bright partner, of course. The faint little pup adds only the gentlest touch of glow. But the light is shared, woven together, two distant stars shining as a single point to our eyes. There is something quietly fitting in that two companions bound together through all the long ages should reach us in the very end, not as two but as one single peaceful light. All their long togetherness gathered into one soft spark. Across the many peoples who have loved this star down the long ages, it has been imagined in countless ways within the figure of the great hound. For to some, Sirius marked the very heart of the dog, beating bright in its breast, while to others it shone at the muzzle, or glittered upon the collar, or burned as the creature's single watchful eye. Each culture drew the loyal hound a little differently across the very same scatter of faint stars and placed its brightest jewel wherever felt most fitting to them. But always, in every telling, in every land, that one brilliant point was the dog's most defining light, the spark that made the whole creature come alive against the dark. One star, one bright beating heart, imagined 1,000 tender ways, by 1,000 different peoples, all of them gazing up across the centuries at the very same unchanging light. The star held still while we drew our many dreams around it. So dependable and so steady is the light of Sirius that, even now in our own modern time, it serves as a kind of standard for those who study the heavens, a reliable, well-known beacon against which finer and more delicate measurements can be checked and trusted. Charted now to the last decimal, and shining so dependably year upon year, it has become one of the trusted reference lights of all modern astronomy, a fixed and familiar point in the sky, helping us to calibrate the delicate instruments that peer out ever further into the deeper dark. When astronomers wish to know just how bright some far, faint thing truly is, they often measure it against the steady, well-known glow of the dog star and reckon outward from there. The very same brilliant star that once guided ancient sailors safely across the open sea now helps to guide the careful science of our own age. From the oldest of all navigation to the newest of all looking, the dog star has always been a faithful light we could lean upon and measure by and trust. Some things are so steady that they become the very yardstick of all the rest. A warm heaviness gathers in you now, sinking down into the bed beneath you. Each of these wonders has come and touched you, and then moved on again into the dark, like sparks drifting up from a low fire and winking out, one by one, against the night. So let them all go, everyone. The limbs are heavy and warm, the breathing long and slow, and you are sinking, easily and without any effort at all, toward the deep, soft, welcoming country of sleep, where the long night gathers you up and holds you and carries you on. The watching of the dog star's yearly return is also quite simply among the very oldest astronomy that human beings have ever practiced, a long unbroken thread of careful looking that reaches back across thousands upon thousands of years. Long before the first telescopes, long before writing itself was widespread, before very nearly all of what we call recorded history, people were already watching for this one bright star to return at dawn, marking the precise moment of its coming and shaping the whole rhythm of their lives around it. To follow Sirius, even now, is to take a quiet part in one of the most ancient of all human habits, the simple act of looking up and noticing and remembering and waiting for a beloved light to return. When you find the dog star tonight, low in the winter dark, you join a long line of watchers stretching back further than almost anything else our kind has ever done, an unbroken company of upturned faces reaching all the way back into the deep mists of our beginning. You are the newest watcher in the oldest of all watches, and across all those long ages and all those scattered peoples, the very same star has worn a great many names. For Sirius has been called by one word in ancient Egypt, and by another in Greece, and by another still in the lands of later faiths, and by countless others besides, all of those names pointing upward at the very same single shining point. Sopdet, and the Dog Star, and the Bright Lady of the Flood, and so many more. A whole gathering of names, given by people scattered so far across the earth that none could ever have heard the others speak, yet who all reached up toward the very same light in the dark. There is a wonder that lingers in that one single star should gather to itself so many different names and so much love from so many far-flung corners of the human family. A single light, called home by 1,000 different voices in 1,000 different tongues across all the long centuries. And every one of those names meant at heart the very same simple thing: brightness and wonder and a light to be loved. And perhaps the gentlest wonder of all is simply this, that the very same light falling on you now falls equally upon everyone, that the Dog Star shines down without any preference at all on every single upturned face in every land, on every night across the world. It does not choose, it does not favour one over another. It simply pours its old silver light down upon the whole turning world at once, upon the sleeping and the waking, upon the great bright cities and the dark and empty seas, upon the shepherd on the hillside and the sailor on the deck and the child at the window, upon you, here, in this room, and upon countless others, everywhere, all of them resting beneath the very same star. Whatever may divide us down here, in all our small and separate lives, we all rest, each and every night, beneath the same single shining point of light, hung in the same wide dark, one sky, one star, one soft shared light, given freely and equally to all. And tonight, that light is yours, as surely as it is anyone's, falling on you, freely given, simply keeping you company in the dark. So let that kinship hold you now as you sink down towards sleep. You're not alone beneath this star. You never have been, not on any night of your life. All across the wide dark world, others are settling too this very hour, beneath the very same light, closing their eyes, slowing their breath, letting the long day go, and the great Dog Star shines over all of you together, constant and endlessly kind. Your breathing has slowed to a deep and even tide, and the body lies still and heavy in the warm dark. There is one last small wonder yet to come, the softest of all, and then there will be only rest, and the warm deep, and sleep. The deepest secret of Sirius is also, in the very end, the very simplest one. It is only this, that the fiercest, most searing, most brilliant flame in all the wide night reaches you, here, as something utterly and completely gentle. Out there, across the great dark, Sirius is a furnace beyond all imagining, a blue-white sun twice the gathered mass of our own, pouring out into the cold the light of 25 suns, bound forever to a small dead star so impossibly dense that the strongest hands could never lift so much as a single spoonful of it. It is heat and pressure and roaring, unending fire on a scale that no human mind can truly hold. It is two whole stars turning around one another across a gulf of emptiness 8.5 long years of light deep. It is, by every fierce measure, one of the most overwhelming things we can ever lay our eyes upon. And yet, by the time all of that immensity has finally crossed the great silent dark and sunk down through the deep moving sea of our atmosphere, and arrived at your window tonight, it has become a single trembling point of silver light, small enough to cover with a fingertip, cool enough to gaze upon in perfect peace, soft enough and kind enough to fall asleep beneath. The very greatest fire we can see, handed across to you at last by sheer distance as something tender. That is the final secret and the final gift, That distance itself is a kind of deep and quiet mercy, that the vast cold spaces lying between the stars take even the most ferocious light there is, and slowly soften it, and slow it, and calm it, until at last it is small enough and gentle enough to soothe a tired heart down into rest. Everything fierce, given enough space to cross, arrives in the end as something gentle. Everything blinding and bright, given enough dark to travel through, becomes, at last, soft and mild and kind. The great dog star has been doing exactly this for you on every clear night of your whole life, taking its searing, roaring fire and handing it across to you as nothing more than a soft whisper of silver, asking nothing in return, only shining, only keeping its long watch over you while you rest. And so the long journey comes now to its close, all of it, every star and every river and every ancient dawn, all settling down behind you, like the very last of the light fading from the evening sky. And if you are still here, drifting now at the very edge of sleep, another quiet journey is already waiting nearby for you, resting there, ready whenever you should next need it, or never at all. There is nothing to reach for. It will keep. It will all keep, safely, until the morning. There is nothing here for you to hold on to now, not the great distance, nor the slow dance, nor the names of the goddesses, nor the season of the flood. Let it all drift away, as easily as it first came, the very way starlight passes through the dark and asks for nothing in return. If something stayed, somewhere deep within you, then that is well. And if everything is simply fading now into the warm dark, then that is well too. There is nothing left at all that you must hold. So let the wide sky go dark and soft and still above you. Let the great bright star sink slowly toward the far horizon of your quiet mind, growing fainter now and smaller, until it is only a single warm point of light, and then, at last, not even that. The breath is slow now, so slow. The body is heavy and held and deeply at ease. There is nothing left to do. There is nowhere left to go. Let the shoulders sink. Let the hands grow still. Let the whole long day drift far, far away. The hunter and his loyal dog are setting now, in the west, carrying the very last of the light down with them, below the soft edge of the world. You are safe. You are warm. You are held by the soft dark, the way the wide night holds each and every sleeping star. Let go now. Let the mind grow as quiet as the deep space between the stars. Let yourself sink and sink into the warm and gentle deep. The light is fading, the sky is still, and all is well. And now, 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.